Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Leadership with a Twist podcast. I am your host and I guess co host, Heather McGonigal. I'm here with Barbara Schindler, who's my co
Hey.
host. Hi. So it is that time of year where maybe you made some New Year's resolutions, some agreements, set some goals for yourself for what you wanted to be up to, and how are you doing? How are they doing? Do you know what your goals were? What agreements you set? This is a time where maybe they're slipping a little bit. It's a good time maybe to pause and check in with yourself. And so that is where Barbara and I are starting things off with this episode, which is to invite you to pause for a moment here with us and check in and catch up with yourself. Barbara?
Yeah, this certainly has been coming up in coaching sessions lately, and that time of the year, right? You've had kind of the close of the year. A lot of people had performance reviews and closing out accounts, starting the new year, starting the new calendar, the new goals coming in. So kind of the pace at work, and then getting to this point and finding themselves kind of, I think it like swept into the tide, right? Like that outside energy where things are happening outside of you in the pace of the business and the pace of your life. Here in Vermont, it's the pace of the cold winter and snowstorms and things like that that impact. And all of a sudden, I'm like, hmm, wait, what was that pace I had planned for myself? What was that structure that I had, really made some agreements around looking at the new year, thinking how I was going to move forward and be really accomplishing the things that I want to, both professionally and personally, finding that balance. And I'm definitely finding that in a lot of coaching calls and that pause that Heather's talking about, that like, wait a minute, let me catch up with myself. How do we reset in that moment, in this moment, to kind of remember, uh, you know, make new agreements or arrange those agreements with enough understanding of the why, right? So that you can put a structure in place. And I think it's also about connecting some checking points. Like, how am I going to check in to be sure I'm not losing my way, right? Swept
Yeah.
in the wind or swept into the tide. So that's
Yeah.
kind of what's been coming forward here.
And what I really hear you sharing, Barbara, too, is want to have an awareness of the external environment that impacts you and us as human beings versus the your internal choices, and we want you to be connected and aware to what are you internally choosing and how's that influencing what's happening in your life at home and at work and everywhere versus, as Barbara described, being more influenced and swept up in the tide of life and sort of pushed to go along with the flow of things, where then the external environment is really driving how things are going, as opposed to you, the individual, consciously choosing and shaping how things are going to go, right? And there's a co creation that happens as well. But that co creation happens more effectively through your empowered choice.
Yeah, in the mindfulness training for leadership, we kind of talk about that as living from the outside in versus the inside out, and having that discernment, like, wait, is this my pace or what did I just get? Why am I running so fast? Wait a minute, type of thing. So really anchoring yourself present, being aware of your intentions, right, for how you're going to approach, how you're going to show up. And I'm going to go a little side piece here, Heather. The other thing that's been coming out a lot is how you show up, the reputation you're going for. Are you the person who hops into Zoom or hops into the meeting last minute and you're catching up with yourself in front of everybody? Or are you pacing, like who do you want to be in those things? Or did you take that 15 minutes before the meeting, check on the notes, check on the agenda, check on yourself. Am I hydrated? Am I present? What are the coaching on this point? I know I'm digressing a little bit, but just quickly, I've had a couple clients lately who'd be like, yeah, right before I went into the meeting, I checked my emails and there was something that threw them off, right? And now they're in the meeting trying to get present and they're distracted, right? So,
Yes.
like, did you take that break? Like, oh, wait, I need to be present for this meeting. I'm not going to check emails 15 minutes before, something like that. So,
Which is a good agreement that you
yes.
could put in place to help you have a better practice of setting yourself up for meetings. So there's a couple things in that little like story that Barbara just shared. First of all, as we were starting off this call, right, I said that February is a time of year where your New Year's resolutions and how you wanted to be for 2026 may be starting to slip. But with this video and this check-in moment, you could use this as a time and a moment to put what you wanted to be, how you wanted to be as a leader in your company in 2026. You could consciously put it back into place. So Barbara's talking about that leader who maybe is showing up to meetings flustered, and you find yourself like, oh my gosh, that's me, that's resonating with you, and that's not how you wanted to be in 2026. In fact, you wrote a resolution quite to the opposite. Well, you can now show up consciously differently and put an agreement in place with yourself around meetings. What does that mean? What are you going to put in place that's going to support you to show up differently in your team meetings? And one of the things might be, I am not going to check my emails 10 minutes before meetings. In fact, I'm going to have an agreement on my calendar that 10 minutes before any meeting, I'm prepping for that meeting. I'm
Right.
looking at the meeting agenda. I'm making sure that I have all the links open on my computer that I need related to that meeting. I'm making sure I've read through the agenda and I have a general idea of what I might be called on for inside of this meeting. I'm making sure my mind is ready to be present in that meeting. All of this might seem like, yes, in the perfect day, in the perfect environment, I would do that. But let's have you go for that, right? Because if you set the intention to go for that, you've quite a better chance of you being able to have that. And this really does help set you up for success. And so, this is a great way that you could have this set of agreements, for example, in how you approach your team meetings on your calendar, and you could make that agreement with yourself. Now,
Right. Right.
maybe we want to teach them a little bit real quick about agreements. If you're new to Barbara or myself and what we teach, agreements are the main mechanism of teamwork and of life, really. Agreements are in everything, but they become this really useful tool when you recognize they're in everything, because then you can surface them and actually use them and go, oh wait, let me make a conscious agreement instead of an unconscious agreement that's just there happening under the surface, and kind of I'm being run by it instead of surfacing it and choosing what I want to do around everything. Did that make sense, Barbara? Do you think I quickly covered agreements good enough?
Yes, I like where you're saying, you can use them as a tool then, right?
Yeah.
Agreements, we're making agreements all the time, but often they're kind of what we think of as unconscious agreements. We
Yeah.
haven't surfaced them, we haven't stated them to ourselves or perhaps the ones we're interacting with. And you can also get conflicting agreements when they're all unconscious, right? Like somebody else who could be thinking of the approaching team meetings very differently. The way we just suggested, preparing ahead of time, knowing the agenda, being ready on the topics, that's actually the best way to show up for a team meeting. But some people don't do it that way, right? And so that would be a conflicting agreement, kind of like, oh, I just wing it. Well, maybe not, we don't advise that anyway for team meetings, but it would be clashing, right? Now you're not doing good work together with others, right? You're not approaching things in a similar manner. So we definitely have team agreements, we're kind of leaning in right now in this conversation to your own self agreements in what's your part, what's your reputation you're going for, what's the health and well-being piece that you care about, right? Like I'm a morning person, so I'd like to zone in and do some real thinking work earlier in the day. Heather's not a morning person. We know this about each other.
We're
So
opposites.
yeah, totally in that. And so her pace might be later in the day where she dives into creative projects and so forth. I want to get them done first, and I'll be more interactive later in the day. That takes different brain power, and we just have a different nature that we're designed in. Then I'd rather work in the pace that helps my excellence. And yes, we then have to make agreements, might have to meet in the middle of the day in the case of our opposites, something like that.
For team
Um,
meetings and times
yes,
that we have to work together, right? We have to find the pacing that works with
yeah,
both of our brains. But then for our individual work, we get to set up our day in the ways that works best for how our brains work. I want to pause that moment and point that out, Barbara, because people can set their days up with more intentionality to work for what's best for how their brain works, because I think that people are more aware these days of neurodivergency in the workplace and different accommodations that people need. But I think that we can make this even, yeah, just even more accessible. Like it shouldn't be an issue. We all are different and need different things, and what we care about is getting the best work out of people. We don't want to force Heather McGonigal to try to be creative at 9 in the morning, because it's really not going to get the best work out of me ever.
not the best creative work. And again, we're bouncing back and forth because the first part of that is self-awareness,
Yes.
right? You need to know more and more. And I think that is definitely a 2026 theme for leaders in business is to spend the time to get to know your own nature, to be sure that you're anchored in the present moment, anchored in what's happening and the agreements you're making within yourself so that you can negotiate agreements with others, so that you can look at the responsibilities and timelines that you again have agreed to in your role in your life, and be like, okay, well, how can I make this work? What's the best pace, instead of scrambling or multitasking, which just drains your brain. Don't multitask, right? Your brain gets very tired quickly and you don't do the best performance, right? You need to be focused. So back to mindfulness, it's about discerning then. Once you have grounded your own self-awareness, right? Then when you're back into that place, I was talking, February is kind of, a lot of people are getting swept into the sea of energy of life is now happening this year, right? And you can be discerning, wait, is this my pace? Is this my energy? Am I reacting or responding? Right? It goes back to that good question. Like, am I anchored here so that I can have my best thinking, my best interaction, and I'm true to myself, right? I'm being authentic in my work. I'm not overriding the tired brain. I'm not pretending I remember that conversation. I'll pause and be like, wait, let me catch up here this moment, right? Let me be sure I've got this so I can do my best thinking independently and with others. So that kind of reset that we're talking about starts with a good solid mindset, right? Based
Mm-hmm.
on self-awareness and how you want to approach your day and your life and the balance of the whole person that you are, right? In all the areas of your life. And then you can work on the agreements of structure and behaviors that meet your essential needs.
Yeah, and so when you talk about structures and behaviors and all of that, Barbara, I was thinking, let's give our audience some bite-sized homework, because
Okay.
when humans are learning new behavior, you can't change everything all at once. You can, however, make changes in small incremental ways and look at what are some agreements that you want to make with yourself that will help you take better care of yourself, in the midst of what is the reality in your life and at work, what's going to help best take care of you. And to make it bite size, I was thinking maybe it's just 3 agreements with yourself that you want to make today after listening to this conversation with Barbara and I. 3 agreements that you're going to put in place that are going to help better set you up for success. What are those 3 agreements you want to make today? And how will you, what are those agreements? And they have to be measurable. So you have to be able to, like, what are you going to be doing differently? So that you're going to be building these 3 habits and keeping these 3 agreements with yourself that are going to better set yourself up for success. And you're just going to do these 3 things for the next 30 days and see how it's going by checking in with yourself and seeing, am I keeping my agreements with myself and how's it going? That's what I think. Do you think that's a good bite-sized amount of homework?
Yeah, I love the 3 agreements. And in that, you're designing it for your whole self and your pace and what's going to be serving you, right? And you could think of a mindset, like mine recently was I'm calm. So my touch point is, am I calm?
Mm.
Right? If I'm not calm, I'm probably swept into reactivity. Like I'm trying to do too much, or something else came in and I didn't take a minute to center myself. So I'm looking for that calm spot. That's like my check-in mindset, right? But then the behavior and the structure are the things like what you're talking about, Heather. It's like, so what would I be doing? How would I be approaching things? What are the 3,
Yeah.
practices,
Like, what are
behaviors that
you
you're going to
doing
come up with?
differently that's going to support you to be calm this month?
Yeah. And then like the when you get that together, like, what does that look like? And, the behavior and structure of that, then it's like, how am I going to check in with myself? Again, for me, am I calm? Right. So that's my check-in through the week. Like, okay, was I calm today? Am I calm right now?
Okay.
Right. So that's
So
like a
so
touch
are
point
you
of
going to have
something.
a habit of, for this homework, would you make an agreement to check in with yourself at the end of every work day? I calm today? And you check in and you go, yes, no, today was a calm day.
Yeah. Or it might be, was I clear today? Sometimes when I'm swept up, I know I'm just thinking of my own practices. It's like I'm always like, did I make sense? Did I say what I wanted to say? Right. And that
Mm-hmm.
kind of, did I have clarity today? Would be a checkpoint for working on that habit.
Right. So I would say that the self agreement might be that at the end of my work day, before I leave my desk for the evening, I am going to check in with myself and say, was I calm today? Was I clear today? Yes or no? And I may rate myself even. Maybe I'll rate myself on a scale from 1 to 10, calm or clear. How did I do? And just take a note. How did I do? How was today? And that's just helping me be more aware that my main goal is to be more calm and clear, and that I'm checking in on myself. How did I do? And that's it, that you're working on that and you're building greater self-awareness towards that, and you're checking in at the end of every workday. Okay? So that's one example of how you would work on that with a self-agreement for the month. And that's just one way towards working with change with yourself.
Mhm.
Because we as humans, we tend to, like why they say so many New Year's resolutions don't work is because as human beings, we like throw the whole kitchen sink at it. We try to do the whole thing, do too much, and then we end up doing nothing. You want to make it a bite sized piece, make it measurable and actionable, and check in with yourself, and then be able to, keep that agreement with yourself that you're doing that. But don't do too much. Just do that. Okay?
Right. So I like the 3, and the last part that helps anchor it is the why.
Yeah. And
So
I think,
health and well-being, and so that I can truly feel good at the end of the day, that I showed up for myself in the ways that I wanted to perform. Things like, sorry, I got a cat visiting.
yes.
So anyway, I think, I guess where I'm addressing that is don't make empty New Year's resolutions. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, what really would anchor you to be more authentic, to feel like you're expressing yourself in the ways that you want to express yourself, that you're succeeding in the ways that you're intending, and how you're balancing and pacing that in your day.
Yeah, well, hopefully the why is sort of the reason behind this whole video. We
Right.
don't want you to feel just carried along with the tide. We want you to feel anchored in yourself, empowered in your life and your choices, and showing up for yourself. So,
Right.
this conversation has been your moment to check in with yourself, your moment to realize where you can be more empowered in your choices, take better care of yourself, and align to how you want to show up in the midst of it all. Thank you, Barbara, for being here with me for this
Yeah.
conversation. And thank you all. Under the video, there is a link. If you want further coaching support from Barbara and I, you can sign up for a discovery call. No pressure, but it is there if you need any further support. And we look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.